structure in order.
Yeah.
I refer to myself as the resident cat herder.
Bob comes out of an IT background where he ended up in management and
software project management particularly, but
he's pretty good at herding us cats.
I'm a firm believer that certain processes have to be maintained, but I'm also a firm believer that you need to, especially in today's environments, give a lot more autonomy and freedom to the people doing the work, as long as you keep reminding them that certain things have to get done whether you like it or not. It's a very fine balance, and it's a moving target. One of the things, Jim keeps running away, one of the things that we're starting to do, actually kind of starting today, is this meeting, which started out as a community discussion meeting and then morphed into a traditional ugly project status meeting that never got through its agenda. We've actually kind of separated, and we've taken the status reporting chunk out and left it pretty much just to Divvy management to get an idea of what's going on. And we're trying to morph this meeting back into a discussion meeting that will allow the members of Divvy to see what's going on, contribute to what's going on, discover things that they're not working on now that they might be interested in, and exchange, and start to exchange some ideas on a somewhat high level basis, because the more detailed stuff needs to, that there's still a game that has to be played here between, giving everybody with whatever interest they have something interesting to come to this meeting for, without having them spend an hour listening to things that they're not working on. So this one is going to be challenging. Jim and I right now, in fact, are going through the agenda simultaneously, playing dueling modifiers here to trim down the agenda. Jim, I see your topic section. I called it "What's Going On." They're about the same thing. I'm just going to take out the Divvy status part, because I don't think that's the last thing we want to do.
I was thinking, it'd be okay.
Yesterday's meeting made it clear that there's a lot to talk about with RChain voting, and that impacts a lot of the, a lot of what we're set up as projects. I'm not gonna delete all of the status report section here, Jim, because there's a lot of valuable links in it that we need to migrate.
Yeah, I was going to.
But I'm going to say it's for reference purposes only.
Yeah, I was going to leave it there, and gradually we'll remove it.
Yeah. In fact.
Notes from prior meetings, something. So the social ledger onboarding is sort of a priority. I think we have to vary according to the audience here. I guess we have HJ on the RChain side, and we have Joachim on the social ledger side. I was hoping to get some more of our communities in here to sort of gets a little bit of see a little bit of onboarding, and for us to try to refine the onboarding process, because that's we sort of have to incubate the communities that are participating, and that's a lot of work, and we need to get it done. Well, in any case, I think the RChain voting will be a fairly short discussion unless we get somebody, some JavaScript developers here. uh, but so I'm good with the thing, the social ledger. Oh, okay. So you got it. Never mind. All right. Yeah. So I put a link to the agenda in the chat, I think. And this is the Divvy Community Meeting, September 26th, 2017. 10:08 a.m. We can start with a check-in. I'll check in first. I'm overwhelmed with the social ledger, bring your own ID, DivvyU, Matter Bridge, channel integrations, member voting with Ethereum signed contracts, and the HAIE of one self-sovereign identity provider. So I'm not going to overwhelm everybody else with the details. I think the gist of this meeting is changing to, so that we can delegate and focus more in specific teams on these things rather than bring them to the regular community meeting unless there's specific questions or comments on them. Gary, you want to go next?
Yes, I've been working on the social ledger project over on Mattermost, and I must say that the onboarding of the social ledger project, in my opinion, needs to be pushed up on the priority list. And you know, I just don't know how to say that in any stronger terms. I don't think I've run across anything like this before, and it looks like it's going to be the place where RChain ends up. But I don't know if they're going to end up there after. I don't know when they're going to end up there. But we need to hurry that up if possible. And I think it will snowball if we just get a critical mass over there.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, Gary. And between Johan, myself, and you, are kind of holding up the fort there and hoping to get more people involved. And the social ledger onboarding is just one of the things that we're tasking. I mean, you're also setting up the video production co-op where we have work to do, and we can pay people to do it, and we just have to get people in that are interested in cooperating.
And that may be the route to speeding this up. Take one small project now that we've got it stubbed out, find someone that will benefit immediately from the project, bring them over, get them up to speed on the social ledger, and then let them go.
Yeah, we have lots of videos to produce, and we have rock to pay for it. HJ?
Yeah, so I'm stimulating people to fill out their rewards for the issues that they have been working on, and then the payment process for the ones can start in the first week of November. And I've been looking at the social ledger and Mattermost, how it's working, and it's looking a really nice system. But I cannot navigate properly in it yet. So that's
Yeah,
about it.
you and everybody else. Typing /dig would be smart. But
Yeah,
it's like pulling teeth. I mean, there is a fair amount to wrap your head around. It's, we tried to make it simple, and it seems really simple to us. But somebody coming into it is overwhelmed. We have found.
yeah,
You're doing an awesome job getting people, with it's pulling teeth to get people to even take money. Offering bounties for participation in the social ledger, but people just, offering money doesn't seem to help activity. And then when they do the work, they don't even claim the money.
yeah.
Well,
Indeed. So
are you offering money, or which tokens are we talking about here?
I offer rocks.
Yeah, you're offering rocks, and rocks kind of have a real value, so that's money.
Yeah,
That's one. I mean, I know we have a plan for the Divvy tokens being worth money in the future, but at the moment they're worth not much. So
Yeah, the way that we're handling the social ledger trial and the YOID for stuff not covered by rocks through RChain is the intention to give Divvy tokens, and private sponsors will offer to buy those.
well, eventually that's our goal.
Well,
Yeah.
I've already been offering to buy back Divvy tokens to some people that receive them. But it's a way of accounting. I mean, maybe someone could earn Divvy and later get rocked for it instead. I don't know.
Well, again, I mean, the Divvy is a future right now. That's Divvy tokens are a future, and if people are, if people are happy to work for a future, then that's fine. Then
Right.
but that's can be part of the problem. I mean,
Yeah,
people have bills to pay.
Giving people a token gives them credit for their effort.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's in many cases, that's all people want.
That's absolutely correct. There's a group of people that's all they really care about. There's other people that would like that token to turn into money someday, but they're not in any hurry for it, and they're not, waiting to pay next month's rent with it. And then there's people who need to pay next month's rent. So
Right, and I feel obligated to help some of those people by buying some of their Divvy.
and most people, for them, it's a side job, so they have already
Right.
an income.
yeah, and again, in those cases, it's working for a future is acceptable. My point is just that there are all kinds, and we need to acknowledge that we're trying to get people of all types to help out here and do some work. The people that need to hold down a paying job, don't have as many hours to spare as the people that are, freer. But that's one of the challenges that this whole that this whole system has been, where almost everybody here has other things going on. So it's a matter of balancing all of the different work that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we talked about yesterday in our managers meeting, and HJ, hopefully we can talk about this, is finding, now that there's a bunch of activists that have filled out their forms and stuff, and they're part of the community but aren't really that active yet, maybe we can go through the group of activists and find the right people for, somebody who wants to learn and get involved, and they have they maybe don't urgently need money, but they have more time than money. And they can help us like with exactly the kind of stuff that Jim and Gary were talking about. We need someone to just help, bootstrap certain things and keep certain things organized in an administrative way that doesn't really require a lot of technical knowledge, but just requires administrative skills.
Yeah, exactly. So my plan is to send out an email to maybe through the Google group of RChain. That's about 150 people, and to make them aware that there are issues existing and that they need to be resolved, and that they can earn rocks for it.
Yeah. Well,
but this email is not. Well, there's an attempt to have the content ready, but it's not finished yet. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's great, but I've worked in a nonprofit for a long time and stuff. And one of the things I found, and I know this is a little different from the way most people in this community like to work, but I found that if somebody comes to you and they're really excited about something and they offer their help and they volunteer, they're more likely to drop off. But if you go to someone directly and ask them, will you do this? That is so much more effective in getting someone on board and dedicated, and they've made a commitment.
Yeah,
So
that's true. But for example, there's an issue of translating the white paper and other documents of RChain.
Mm-hmm.
But then you first have to develop a plan. Somebody cannot start translating straight away. But you have to know what you do with it, how you distribute it, and to which population you distribute it, etc. So you need a kind of plan, and the one who raised this subject has to invent that plan, in fact.
Yeah, I was going to add to what Plant Eater was saying, especially in the realm of volunteer or nonprofit or whatever. The enthusiastic people can be captured and made useful, but you need to have something for them to do immediately. Leah, the folks that come to you and say, hey, this sounds really great. What can I do to help? All right. If you don't have an answer for them, if you don't say, here, take this, start working, then yes, they're the ones that are going to walk away.
Yep, you lose them really
because they're
fast.
going to go off and look for something else. They're going to look for something to do. They're not looking for some place to just stand around and talk about what we should do. They want to do. So, and HJ, this plays back into yours. We need all of this stuff we need done needs to get hashed out at least to the point where it can be parceled out to willing volunteers. So that you can hand somebody who shows up, who says, hey, I can code, I can do this, I can do that. What do you want me to do? Here, do this. That's how you want. And once you catch them, once they get involved, then you got them hooked, and they'll hang around for a while. But and again, we're not doing any worse than half a dozen volunteer organizations I've been involved with the, hey, let's find all people that are interested, gather their skill sets, and then we'll sit down and figure out what to do with them. Yeah, the problem is by the time we figure out what to do with them, half of them are gone.
Yeah, so it must not be us who figure out what they have to do. They have to invent it themselves.
Well, that's partly, but more importantly, we have to know what we want them to do. All right. We have to have a list of things that need doing and that are ready to get done. And yeah, I agree with letting people pick the things they want to work on, as opposed to assigning them something they might not want to do. But we don't even have that list of things to work on. And that's the problem.
Well, and I would say also, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Plandita.
Okay, I was just going to say also, I think we need some sort of transition to where we do provide more support and encouragement in the beginning until until we have this well-oiled system where people come in and they see, oh, this is how it works, and you do this, and it's really easy, and this is how you fill out a proposal, and everyone else is doing it, and this is how you add your hours, this is how you vote on something, you know, the budget for something, and that there will be other people there who will help them if they need it. And it's like, until it's this really smooth system, I think it can work, but I don't think it can work in the beginning. I think there has to be some kind of transition.
Well, welcome to startup.
Yeah, I think the onboarding for Dig Life that Joachim has laid out is a great model that we might want to look at and adapt for our purposes. And you know, there's a lot of onboarding to everything. I mean, every team is onboarding, and they're looking to thrive and grow as an organization.
Right. I can talk a little bit about that if you want to, Jim.
Yeah, I just wanted to plant your point across, which I think is exactly the right approach. You can take non-technical people and employ them to ask people to take steps in defining their organization or their activities, or doing the things on our list. We do have lots of things on our list that we want people to do. That's not a problem. But for example, if we had coordinators doing what HJ has been doing in terms of getting people to set bounties for issues on GitHub, that it could get done. You know, I mean, sending out emails to people isn't going to get it done. But somebody in the thread, you know, saying, you know, what bounty should we set for this or whatever, is going to get it done. Is that sort of what you had in mind, Plant Eater?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that require a lot of time, but aren't that complicated, but that just, you know, help people get started. And yeah, pretty much just in the calendars too, we were talking about just how the calendars can become a mess so quickly, and, you know, they can just sort of, they know all the little things that need to be done, and they just sort of follow up on every one across all the projects, and they're going to tend to be pretty similar across the projects, and they're not going to act like some kind of manager. They're going to act more like an assistant in helping people get going.
I can give an example.
And I think it really definitely has to be somebody that gets paid in rocks for that, because it's not a fun job and it's very time consuming.
I think, you know, there's a facilitator role that goes with facilitating a person who comes into a collective, and facilitating a task or an issue that comes into a collective. And it's, you know, been shown many times that the facilitation role is key to success.
Yeah, I think in the frequent human communication in the beginning that makes people feel like a part of a group. That, I mean, it's important that people be able to feel like they can just work on whatever they want to work on, but they also have to feel part of the community, and that takes people welcoming them into the community in a way that I think actually HJ's done a much better job of this than anyone else, and Patrick has also. But I think everybody's busy, and I think too much of all of this is falling on HJ's shoulders. And HJ, I can help you with some of this stuff, because I know this is become a huge burden on you.
Yeah, you're amazing, HJ. I don't know.
Well, I could give an example of how I do the things, if there's time for it, Bob.
You know, I would love to see an example of, there's one thing I'm confused about, which is how to vote on proposed projects and budgets. I mean, I know there's a form for creating a project and budget and for adding yourself and for adding hours, but how do you actually vote for that project in the first place? You know how you need the 3 voters. I'm confused about that part.
Yeah, yeah. It's the process is not so clear at the moment. I can tell that, but I can show you a spreadsheet where things become more clear. I share my screen, and
Essentially, the rewards are done by consent of the team. I mean,
so
you know, we estimate percentages of the bounty that represent percentages of the effort that people put into the task. But you know, if there's an issue on GitHub, you can upvote it. You know, we're looking at other mechanisms there as well, where you can participate in GitHub and vote there.
yes. So if I look for this is the output of the form. So somebody sets a budget for an issue to be resolved.
We can't see your screen.
You cannot. Oh, stop.
I see it.
Oh, you see it. You see it? Maybe I need to refresh. I can't see it.
No. How can I solve that?
Well, Jim, you can see it. If Jim can see it, then the problem's on my end.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave and rejoin, if that helps.
Okay. Well, the budget setting is going quite well. So, for example, Jim has set 5,000 for issue 106. Now I can see that in the budget of. Let me see. Budget. Clear. Sorry, it's a bit 6. So member voting, 2 people have been voting for the budget. And that's 5,000 each. So the average is also 5,000, and then the budget is 50,000 ROC for it. And this comes from this form response from Jim Scarver and Kit Blake. So they've answered on the question, the budget claim in dollars. And they have filled out the issue number, like 105. And they've put down their email and their GitHub idea. Now, for estimate of work done, this is not so clear yet. Maybe I also have to get the form with it. Wait a minute. The form for the budget allocating and spending. So what you would do here is you fill out your email address, and then you can say, I give an estimate of work done on an issue. So you give your GitHub idea, the issue on the number, and the budget claim in dollars. And here, oh yeah, sorry. For the estimating of work done on an issue. So you give your GitHub idea, the issue number, and the percentage of work done. So you note it down like this. Then have to go to the form, but let me see. So like this, I say Le Pen said that's done 40%, comma, Patrick has done 35%, and so on. Like this, you could set the percentages of work done on an issue. Does it make sense, Plant Eater?
I still can't see your screen, but wow.
Oh, wait a minute, sorry.
Okay, so I still can't see your screen, but I think I know which form and which spreadsheet you're talking about. And so like the process, how it works makes sense to me. But where are people voting on whether like, say I don't want to work on the project and but I want to vote on the project. You know, because there's two fields. There's the field for people working on it with their hours, and then there's the column for people who've actually voted, the 3 people who vote yes. So how do I vote yes for this project without adding myself to a person who works on it?
I think what you want to do, Plant Eater, is you want to fill out the form for the percentage that the people have contributed. Okay, so that you're saying, oh, HJ did a great job. He did a lot here, and so you're voting on percentages for people using the form that HJ created to report. I don't know if it restricts who can suggest percentages to those on the team. Well, they're actually being rewarded.
It's restricted to you have to have at least a little knowledge of the issue, and you have to be able to judge the people who are working on it. So I expect that at least your name shows one time up in the conversation of an issue.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because when you don't know anything about the issue, how can you vote on it?
All right, so that let me get this straight. That form is not, it's not just a I did work reporting form. It's a I think everybody's contributions are this collection of percentages. Is that correct?
Yeah, but those people who can have a reward must at least have some comments on the issue.
Yeah, you're right, Bob.
You cannot, you have to do something on it.
Yeah, it's self evaluation of the contribution of the team.
Well, it's not so much self-evaluation. It's my evaluation of the team's performance.
Right.
And in theory, every member of the team will do that, and in theory, every member of the team will more or less agree, I assume, or at least get close to agreement, and then is the plan then just to use that as a basis for discussion? I mean, let's say I'm active in a project and I think I did 25% and Jim did 75, and he thinks he did 85 and I did 15. What happens next?
He uses the averages.
Yeah.
At present, it uses the addresses, and if anybody's misbehaving in terms of making,
yeah, I'm not talking about malicious.
He's going to be thrown off the team.
Right. I'm not talking about malicious misbehaving here. I'm just talking about, legitimate. I assume everybody's going to at least be in the ballpark, in the same ballpark with their estimates.
I could show how it works out in a spreadsheet. I can share my screen.
The idea is if 3 people vote on a percentage, then the person's awarded.
So, do you see my screen?
Yep.
I do
Yes.
now, yeah.
Okay, so for example, Dr. Bloom, wait a minute. Yeah, that's not correct. That's my entry. Let's go to Kit Blake. Kit Blake has filled out this for himself, for Plant Eater, and for Katie Valentine, and for Montshilov. And I did it I participated also in the project a little bit.
Mhm.
And I said, Kit Blake 70%. And so that averages out on this figures. And then I have to pay them this amount of dollars. And that's converted into rock at a rate of 10 cents per rock. So, and then I can start with the invoicing process.
But what happened there was you and Kit and one other person voted?
Yeah. So, and this is, well, first I thought, let's have some managers, kind of managers, vote
Mm-hmm.
for people who participated in the project. But the next months, here, it will be only people who are participating in the team, they can vote.
Right. Do me a favor, go back to the other screen for a second.
Yeah.
I'm just interested about something.
Wait a minute, where is it? Rewards. So.
All right. So again, you said the 3 people needed to vote. So you and Kit are 2. Who's the third? And I'm wondering, because I'm seeing just a little bit over to the side. Okay.
It's Patrick.
Okay. Now, go back to the left a little bit for a minute, because there was an entry there for one of the, for one person. Go to a little to the left of Kit. One more there. No, go back. Go back to the right 2 and down.
So here.
No, KDV, whoever, next to Ken.
Yeah.
I see a 3% entry there. I mean,
yeah.
What did this person just vote for 3% for 3% for himself, but he didn't vote everybody else in?
Yeah, probably that's an error because I've been so. Let's say it was like this. So.
Right. Or did he just say, I think I contributed 3% and I don't know what everybody else did? I mean, that's.
Yeah, let's not go into too much detail here. I think that's a topic for another meeting.
Okay, I just have one more question though. Can we look at the pub activist budget allocation spending spreadsheet for a second?
Yeah. So the budget. Yeah. This, you mean this, Plant Eater?
No, there's
or the rewards.
It's called pub activist budget allocation spending. It's the thing I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so we have
well, anyway, my no.
And the budget.
No. Well, okay, it doesn't matter, but my question, okay, perfect. Look at column L, voters.
Yeah.
Okay. How does that get populated? How do the people show up as voters? How do people vote and become voters in that just for the project?
Yeah, so that comes from the form.
From the budget allocation form or from a different form?
It's the same form, but it splits in 2. Either you can give a reward or you can define a budget.
Okay, so if you're defining a budget, that's the part you would choose to actually vote that yes, you think this is a good project and you want to be one of the 3 people approving it, or?
Yeah. So anybody can vote on the budget of the project. But anybody, then you have to show up at least one time in the issue in GitHub, like 106. This is the GitHub issue. So the best would be that the people who are assigned to the issue, that they define the budget also. But if you just want to give some feedback on the issue, then you should be able to vote also for the budget. But then you have to at least show up one time in the comment list. Does it make sense?
Well, I mean, the idea makes sense, but I'm trying to see it in the budget allocation form, because I don't want to make a budget claim in dollars, and that's a required field.
Yeah.
I just want to say, and I don't necessarily want to work on a particular issue, but I think it's an important issue, and I want to vote yes for it.
Okay, that's a different issue. And this can be solved. It's not implemented yet, but if you go
Okay, that's why I couldn't find it.
to the issues,
Yeah.
then where was this? They could vote on the issue. It has disappeared, I think.
Okay. All right. But it should be there right next, right?
But that's the thing of Jake Gilberg, and he said, well, you can vote on an issue, and then the urgency or importancy of the issue gets votes.
Okay. So currently you have to be an assignee or mentioned in the comments somehow in order to be able to vote. But in the future, it's going to be that anyone can vote.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But that's just for the priority. And then a budget issue without a budget is maybe not so interesting. So I don't know yet, but we have to see how it works out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we're working on the voting, but right now, if you go to an issue and you support that issue, you can add a thumbs up to it.
Okay, so that's
So
not.
that's the voting we have. It's not restricted to members, I don't believe.
But does somebody manually input that in the spreadsheet then, or is that just among members to see relative importance?
Yeah, it's not implemented yet, but you can vote this way.
Okay, but that's not put into the spreadsheet as like the 3 voters.
I could put it manually into a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to create more work for you. I'm just trying to find out how it works now and how it's supposed to work. But I think I understand well enough.
And in the future, we have the Git token thing.
Yeah.
And that measures every action you do on GitHub.
Yeah.
And then you get an idea of how important people find a certain issue, or how much they do on a certain issue.
So is that plugin, like, is that ready? I could use it now?
No, it's end of the month it will be launched, and then we have to see how we can integrate it, and RChain can be a pilot for this project.
So that's going to be, so the RChain member voting for in November is going to be the first time that's really used. Is that right?
Yeah. So you have the voting, but you have also the measurement of GitHub interaction.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
So that will actually help people to assign. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to go talk too much about this now, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your questions. Yeah.
Okay, Jim.
Yes, I'm here. I'm listening.
It's a very permissive system. I mean, basically, if 3 members want to do something, they can set their own budget and pay themselves. It's a little scary.
This idea comes from the Pirate Party of Sweden. If you want to grow massively, you need a lot of freedom.
I agree with that. Yeah, no, I mean, the most important thing right now is to just get people doing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, however, yeah.
Right. I mean, that's a very important point, and that's currently the focus, the same focus that we have in the Digital Life Collective, right? So, I mean, from listening all of this, let me give you two kind of observations here that maybe something you can think about and see how you embed that into your work. You know, one thing that we do at the Digital Life Collective is we push a lot to the edge. You know, we have this holonic structure and we're building these circles now, and it's a nested structure. So there's work within work within work. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to push the entire decision making and budgeting towards the edge of these circles. So it's actually the teams who make these decisions, and if they need funding and they need some money for doing that, fine. There's a certain allocated budget and they could use it. I mean, you guys are much further along with the whole financial thing. We're beginning to think about how we hook the social ledger into a financial ledger. But one of the core ideas at the Digital Life Collective is really to say, push it to the edge. So the core doesn't even have to know of all these activities that are going on. We want to avoid centralization as much as possible, right? You can actually do this. If you have a good holonic structure, you know, a sociocratic structure, you can push this to the edge. And if, unless it's a really important decision, right, a strategic decision, then you need to bring it back into the collective, and then it bubbles up, and then we have to have some voting mechanism in place, of course. But we try to push it out and avoid this as long as possible, right? So that's one thing I wanted to bring up. So pushing it to the edge, I think, is a promising principle we have.
Right, and it's the sociocratic links that connect the dependent and related activities so that the organization as a whole can act intelligently.
Yes.
Okay, without a hierarchy.
Yes, that's right. So the second point I wanted to bring up is, you know, we focus a lot on intrinsic motivation at this stage. And by that I mean anything that attracts people to working with us, you know, joining us, contributing to, you know, to the greater good of the collective. We focus less so on the extrinsic part. And by extrinsic part, I mean the token reward system, or a ledger like you have there. We say, okay, we're going to pay you for this activity or this issue that you're going to resolve with X amount of dollars, right? It's going to come at some point, but we're not at that stage yet. And I'm not even sure how this is going to play out. Because let me tell you a little bit about the intrinsic motivation piece. What we're doing with the social ledger is creating a way to build sort of a snapshot of all the commitments that are currently happening across the collective, right? For example, I see Gary, you know, he puts in a lot of the activities there, which is great. You know, my thing is dinging all the time with Gary putting in a new activity into the social ledger. But think about, you know, it's Gary here, but think about a lot of teams are doing that. So you see a lot of activities across the collective, whatever, you know, group you have there, building up. And this piece through the social ledger becomes extremely transparent. So you can see at a high level, what are the activities across the collective. And in other words, this is kind of an energy snapshot of where are people invested in right now, right? Why are they doing this, and what activities they're circling on around, right? I call these activities social objects. There's a whole, you know, literature talks about social artifacts. You can see this in social sciences. So they gather around these social objects, and these are the pieces that attract members, right? And say, okay, I want to be part of this circle that works on this kind of activity or social object, right? So my vision for that is a little bit is, so why not taking a snapshot in time of the entire collective, you know? So we know, provided, you know, they're using the social ledger to record some of the important social objects, not asking them to go down into a level of detail where every single transaction is recorded in the social ledger. I don't want this. There are other systems where you can do that, right? There are project management tools, there are some accounting tools where you can record individual transactions. But the social ledger records the big pieces, you know, the big chunks. And why not taking a snapshot of the collective and say, okay, Now we have a slice in time where I know how people are engaged in the different activities. And now let's bring in the financial part of that. Let's reward that. Okay. So all we do, all the budgeting actually does is, okay, cut this slice of time, and it could be, I call this time-based commitments. So it could be, for a slice of time for, if you're not, if you're not sure how much money actually will flow out doing that, you could cut it on a day-by-day basis, right? So you can say, today, I see these commitments, done by these members, let me reward that, okay? So the money flows now back into the collective, and it's allocated according to the level of commitments they created. And they've recorded actually in the social ledger, right? And that's it. And that's end of the budgeting process, basically, right? And then you go to the next day, right? So the next day you see again, there may be new activities. Maybe Gary came in and created 10 new activities there. Great, right? So now they are rewarded on the next day because he and his friends committed to these new activities, right? The cool part is, I mean, we live in a world of what Hal Jockey calls perpetual beta, right? So things change all the time. It's very hard to actually plan in this kind of world where you say, okay, we're going to fund this. There's a plan for the next 2 years where we go to this and this and this and this, right? It's extremely hard, and it's going to get harder all the time. That's why my thinking is, in this world of perpetual beta is you can't think ahead too much. You can't really plan ahead too much. It's not working. It's not working because you don't know what's going to happen. You reach new levels of understanding where you have a new perspective and things change. Change all the time. So it's not possible. So what I'm saying is, okay, let's shrink this window and say, okay, today, where's the current activity? Great. Let's reward that. Let's move on to tomorrow, right? See where's the new current activity. Did Gary, create some new activity that are now suddenly becoming very important? That becomes the center of focus. Let's reward that. Let's go to the next day, right? So it's really day by day by day. If you could connect that to a sort of a financial ledger backend system that says, okay, we'll have a certain budget for the collective. It flows back into all of these activities that are happening across it, right? And it funds certain activities, right? That to me would be a vision that says, overlap. It's kind of the intersection between the intrinsic motivation that we want to create and the extrinsic piece, the extrinsic reward as a counterpart. Because of course you want to, put some money back and reward people for doing that. They don't do this for free. So that's kind of the high level overview of what I want to do with the Digital Life Collective.
Yeah, and let me just point out that the primary members of the Social Ledger Lab, we have 3 very different concepts of rewards, and this comes back to the autonomy of groups, and how they distribute their rewards is really up to them. Nobody is going to buy into, not everybody is going to buy into one way of doing the rewards. Okay, what we're doing in Divvy more or less is the idea of having activity tokens and project tokens and basically create a marketplace that capitalizes on success. And I think this idea of rewarding where the effort is today that Jim is pointing to is certainly a part of this. And we want to sort of invest in human potential. And where that potential is where we want to invest.
That is so important, Jim. Let me show you one slide here because of that potential thing. We just had that discussion over in the collective. So two levels of potential. That is potential at the individual level, right? So you see these circles here on the right side, where I call it, this is unknown potential. These are really your talents, right? You have a lot of different talents, big and small talents, right? nobody, you haven't tapped into that yet, right? But you can actually do this when you're starting to visualize and to realize your potentials in the actions you take within the collective, right? So that's where your unknown potential becomes visible to others, right? And it actually goes a step further to say, okay, once you've now taken a role inside a circle or worked on some activities, that becomes a known potential for the collective, right? And that creates a guy called Adrian Gropper came up with this concept of, this creates actually your reputation. This is dealing with the notion of cost of leaving. You know, we had this discussion, you know, quite often in the collective. What makes people stay in a collective? Why would they stay and, you know, come, drop in and leave the next day, right? It's because they develop a kind of reputation, and the reputation is not, you know, a cool social media number out there in the networks. It's because of the impact you created within the collective for the work you've done, right? And that kind of thing, I think, is the individual potential that keeps people doing that. Which, if you zoom out here, actually, then you have a collective potential too. So it's all the individuals here participating, contributing, and they build something together, which is then the collective potential. I think that it's mind-boggling what you can do with this kind of thinking of you know, letting people tap into their real talents and visualize that in some fashion. Okay, back to you, Jim.
I got a quick question, and maybe this will help clarify a lot of the confusion that I've had about the some of the social ledger related stuff that Jim has been trying to demonstrate to us without you being here. By the way, how do you pronounce your name correctly? I've heard about 4 different versions since this call started.
Oh, I have at least 10 different versions. So don't worry.
Which do you prefer?
I don't know. Spanish is good. Joachim, or I'm from Germany, right? So Joachim, if you want to try that.
Joachim, okay,
Good.
Close enough. Joachim,
Very good.
good. Okay. You referred to specifying level of commitment. This is a semantic thing, but to me, commitment implies what I want to do in the future. You know, in the morning, I can make a commitment to what I'm going to try to do today, which may or may not have any real connection to what actually ends up getting done by the end of the day.
Hmm.
So where or do you make a distinction between commitment to future work versus actual effort versus actual results? Because I can also spend all day working on something and not get it done, and Jim can come along in 5 minutes and solve a problem.
Yeah,
in that situation, yeah. So let's say Jim and I at the beginning of the day both say we're gonna work on this 50% each. I spend all day working on it and get nowhere. Jim comes in for 5 minutes at the end and says, "Oh, just do this," and we're done.
Yeah. Well, you see, this
So
is
so how do you record that? That's
you don't record that yet. This is about working together. If I see that 3 people are committed to an activity, these are the people I talk to about getting it done together. Okay, we're trying to, you know, individual work, effort, you know, I see coming in, you know, through an effort token that will add through to the social ledger, and will ultimately be the project coins of Divvy. But at this point, we're facilitating working together, and if somebody says they're going to be involved in an activity and they're not there, well, then you can reset you can talk to them, and if they don't want to participate, you can set their activity level to sleeping.
Yes, Jim, and also to answer Bob's question there about what is a commitment. You know, we spend some time on thinking about, you know, there's commitment and there's time. You know, these things are related in some fashion. So I came up with a notion of they're actually time-based commitments, right? So if you take a commitment, of course you can plan it far in the future, right? You know, I'm going to do this next year. But if you shrink that time and say, okay, what's your commitment right now, today, to some activity, and you share that commitment, right? So you say, I'm okay, I'm working on this schedule with Jim. I'm committing, 50% of my, don't even say time, how much time you're going to spend. Because the moment you do this and say, I'm going to spend 5 hours on this, then you're projecting into the future. This is a very difficult thing to do because you don't know if you're going to spend 5 hours. You don't know if it's going to take 5 hours to solve that problem, right? Maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe 10 minutes, right? You don't know. But if you can say, I am committed to this, and you can agree on, you'll see me here from time to time, or I'm going to put all of my effort into this, full time, whatever that means, I'm going to put my commitment here. Then you suddenly have what I call a time-based commitment for a slice that you can create and say, so today I'm doing that. And what I want to do with the social ledger is commitments actually fade away over time. So what that means is, let's say you have a commitment, say, I'm here, I'm doing that with you guys, and you can arrange, let's say, a month, I'll be here for a month. If after a month you don't come back and say, I'm still committed to that, it's going to fade away. So that means your activity.
I have to say, I really think the time tokens should be separate. There's a lot of stuff being published now on mental energy conservation. Okay, and that is a much stronger measure than time in terms of what a person is putting in terms of the mental energy. And there's also the other aspect of that, which you have included, which, the story that it takes you a lifetime of training and experience in order to do something in 5 seconds that's worth a lot more than 5 seconds. Okay, so there's a level of the activity that comes into it. I'm really skeptical about the time-based commitment token, although that is such a thing. But when I make a commitment, it means I'm there, I'm available.
Right, but there
specify how much time I'm going to spend.
Right, but there does need to be some sort of transition from commitment to effort and results, effort or results. I mean, over the course of completing task X. I mean,
yeah, and where we're coming from is we have a system where the team gets rewarded by a sponsor and the team decides how it's going to distribute it, which could be by percentage, the way that HJ has it set up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that, Jim, and I know I still yet have to convince you about the time-based commitments. But my goal is I want to go away from these damn timesheets. Okay, I've grown up in an organization that had to fill out these timesheets every single day. Right, it's a horrific task. Nobody wants to do it. Right, and I think it's not necessary. Right, if you're willing to say, yes, I'm committed for this. And time again. Jim, time doesn't mean it's absolute here. This is saying for specific tasks, I'm doing these kind of things, and you get rewarded for that. That's all, right? And tomorrow, if you're still there, well, great. Let's continue that, right? So as soon as you can shrink that window and say, yes, let me see what's actually happening today with you and with that activity. That's a much more accurate way to reward people than if you put in a stake in the ground and say, okay, it's going to take me 10 days to create this thing.
Yeah, well, I think there's something you said actually earlier. I think you need to keep in mind here too. I agree. Filling out timesheets is not something anybody wants to do. But one benefit of filling out a timesheet, if you want to call it that, is and unfortunately a lot of people don't do it, is to actually take stock of, well, what did I think I was going to get done today and what did I actually get done today? All right, and if there's major deviations between them, the question should be tomorrow, so what am I going to do to guess better tomorrow? Or if I really needed to spend time on this and I didn't, what am I going to do to convince myself that I need to spend time on it tomorrow? you mentioned before about, you know, commitments fading over time. You know, if you're not actually there, you know, I say I'm going to spend all my time doing this and I don't actually show up, that over time that commitment is going to fade somehow. I think there needs to be some sort of self-assessment step in here whenever you're going to talk about commitment. You know, periodically, somehow you need to ask yourself, well, I committed to doing this full time. Did I?
Yes.
You know, and if I didn't, how do I fix that? And fix that could either mean to adjust the commitment, or it could mean to adjust my mindset to meet my commitment. You know? Well, no, I mean, like
Yes.
I said, it's a self-assessment. So
Yes, perfect. That's a
you
great
know.
way to put it, Bob. I love that. You know, and that if we can make a system that actually only takes care of that part, right? So on a periodic basis, just self-assess yourself, and it's not, you know, because it's visible to others. Other people see that too, right? You're not on your own doing that, right? So there's Jim saying, hey, you assessed yourself with being, you know, a major part of this project. You're not, right? So you're going to correct yourself, right? So that circle, that information, that data point should be enough to create the other side of the thing to reward you for the work you did, right?
Yeah.
This is all great stuff. And, you know, our main disagreement, only disagreement, is that you want to make one token do more than one value, and I think we need many tokens. I think, you know, I think we have to.
I don't know. You know, one token can do it as long as A, the token's awarded at the end, and B, the reward allocation process takes into account not just raw product, but the whole participation effort involved. So using my example before, you know, again, you know, Jim and I both say we're gonna devote equal time. I spend all day knocking my head against the wall. I don't get anything done. Jim comes on at 4:30 in the afternoon. I give him a 20-minute rundown of all the things I did. What something I say sets the light bulb off in his head, and he says, "Oh, we fix it this way," and we're done. He spent 5 minutes, but he spent 5 minutes built on all my work. So, you know, even though I couldn't figure out the end point, you know, it helped Jim to figure out the end point. Jim and I now need to come to some agreement on how to share the reward. You know, and as long as we can do that amicably, then the single thing works. You know, we are kind of taking into account the commitments and the effort as well as the results. You know, and again, as long as we can do that amicably, then then everybody's happy.
Yeah, that's important.
So
The thing to address that I find is you create another dimension, which is your level of expertise. That is nothing to do with the level of commitment, right? These are two orthogonal things.
right.
So if you say you are an expert in XYZ, that of course allows you to find solution, you know, much more efficiently than someone who is a beginner in this area, right? So you take these two things, and then that makes that together, you know, is linked to the reward of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And expertise is a difficult thing to define. But what we're doing in the collective is, I want to know your expertise within a given circle, right? So you can, let's say you can join the marketing circle that creates new content on the website. What's your expertise for that? Versus, you know, you are a group lead in artificial intelligence. What's your expertise for that? So totally different things. And you can declare your level of expertise in marketing and in artificial intelligence, right? And so these different values, and they're rewarded differently then too, right? But again, it taps into your talent pool, right? So you have different talents, and you want to, you know, dig into that and offer that kind of talent in a collective.
I think it's a great, you know, approximation. I think you've done an amazing job, but I still have a priority of introducing open money style local currencies within activities and teams and organizations that can ultimately be extracted into fungible currency.
You know, I would love to, if we could, bring Patrick into this discussion, because he's done a lot of thinking and reading and doing in terms of tokenized economies, and he sort of sees a world where, you know, everything is tokenized. And so I think it would be really interesting to hear what he says about all of this.
Okay, we're over the hour. Did everyone check in? I would say that the one thing that is plaguing all the projects is getting people on board, which brings us back to the onboarding. You know, the video production co-op that Gary's leading is one area where there's a tremendous amount of work to be done for RChain that we have funded, and it gives us an opportunity to get our systems and structures into place for an enterprise that can be applied to other projects that are less funded. And in fact, with RChain, there's you know, everywhere from the noob class to every issue on GitHub, and the issues that should be there is work that we have ahead of us that we need to staff. And you know, with Dig Life, we have the problem of we're not paying people. And yet there's other activities that Dig Life people might get involved with to get paid, although that may not be. It doesn't seem like offering to pay people is helping much. People don't even claim the rewards. So, you know, the issue is what we're going to do, how we're going to approach that issue that I wanted to cover before we went in and just get people's thoughts on it. I guess we did get some thoughts on it earlier.
Well, I think there's two things. One is just going the direction that everyone's already going in, which is getting things more automated. And the other is, you know, having more help with people to transition, have more effort put into onboarding and transitioning people to the new systems.
I think part of that involves getting the new systems put together, you know, finalized. So we have lots of bits and pieces in various stages of deployment. You know, but again, like I said before, welcome to startup. You know, this stuff doesn't create itself. It doesn't magically appear because we need it to. I think we are going to have to, you know, take, you know, and Ken has been doing a lot of work in this area, but we need to decide what pieces, you know, what are important, and I think we need to do that not just from a standpoint of linear process, because that's kind of the approach we've taken. You know, let's build the form, let's put the date, you know, let's create the talent pool, and then let's, you know, start looking at our projects and see where to put the talent. I think what we need to do is take a quick 10,000-foot view of the whole thing and decide which pieces we need to work on first, with the focus being on getting interested people engaged quickly. And that may not mean doing it in the linear order that seems to make sense. Because if it takes us too long to get to the point where we figure out, you know, okay, Harry said he can do this. You know, Harry said he's a skilled JavaScript programmer, so let's get him to work, you know, doing such and such. If it takes us 6 weeks to get to that point because we're busy working on talent pool forms and things like that, then Harry's not going to be there when we finally go to look for him to do some work. You know, so I think we need to, you know, like I said, just kind of reprioritize ourselves. What do we need to do to get people going? And if it means building our whole onboarding system instead of from the, you know, not from front to back and not from the inside out, not from top to bottom, but from 47 bubbles all growing until you end up with a hole, then that's the way we need to do it.
Yeah, I think yesterday we had some discussion about it, and you know, one of the places to draw people in is through the calendar by holding regular meetings for our top priority projects, and bring your own idea, RChain and Social Ledger, and
yeah, because at the very least that gives people some place to go to realize that there's work being done, or at least being talked about.
right.
Yeah, they're not sitting there waiting. Again, human nature, unfortunately, I mean, again, especially if you get somebody to come in, you know, that comes in relatively blind and finds our website and says, oh, okay, this sounds interesting, let me sign up. All right. If nobody comes and gets them and talks to them within a day or so, then they're gone. They're done. You know, even if they're not doing active work, if somebody comes to them and says, oh, you said this looked like an interesting project, here's our meeting schedule, come on in, we'll introduce you and let you know what's going on. You know, again, that goes back to the making people feel welcome that got mentioned earlier. That I think Plan Eater, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
You know, that's important. You need to put, you know, and again, I can tell you from volunteer work, you know, it's great to get new members to come into your volunteer organization, but unless somebody walks up to them, puts an arm around the shoulder, you know, makes them feel comfortable and welcome, buys them a drink, and then tells them, okay, here's what I need you to do, then they're not coming back.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think, I want to add that I think what it takes to have a well-functioning system that the way we want it to is what it takes to bootstrap that is totally different from the thing itself.
Correct.
And I don't,
Correct.
you can't use the system to create the system. So.
No, and you can't wait for the system to implement the process. You know, it's right now it's a manual process. We have to recognize that. We'd like it all to be automated. That's wonderful, but until it is automated, it needs to be we need to be doing it manually. And if manually means sending a lot of emails and, you know, and text messages to tell people, hey, don't forget we have a meeting coming up, you know, tomorrow or whatever, then, you know, until we know everybody has the calendar and is looking at the calendar, we can't even rely on the calendar, for example, for meetings to say, oh yeah, well, you should have known that was on, you know, it was on the calendar. Why weren't you at the meeting? You know, again, early on, until people get used to checking things like that, you know, somebody has their email address, send them an email an hour before the meeting saying, or a day before the meeting, you know, saying, hey, you know, don't forget, we're talking about this topic and you said you were interested in it.
Yeah, right, Bob. So I mean, the onboarding process is one of the most critical processes you have to deal with. We're struggling with exactly the same things over in the Digital Life Collective. And yesterday, actually, we had a good meeting about this, where we decided to break down the onboarding into several stages, right? So what we did initially was give, you know, everything we know, you know, dump that on the new person, and then he or she should find a way around it. We heard, you know, feedback that this is overwhelming. You know, don't want everything at once. They don't. They can't even process it. But what's funny about us is it's so difficult to see that because we've been there now for quite some time, and it's not complicated anymore, right? It's obvious for us, but you can't put yourself into the shoes of a newcomer who sees that stuff for the first time. It's completely overwhelming. So that's why we decided, let's take a step back here and redesign the onboarding process. So what we're going to do now with the launch of the new website in October, we will do that in stages. So the first time he or she comes to the collective, he'll see, a small amount of information presented. And, he or she will maybe come to Mattermost, maybe see the main channel, and there's an open chat channel. This is it, right? And then she can introduce herself in the channel and maybe start a conversation there. And that's fine, right? And then there's also an automation part. I'm working on that, where every week the newcomer will get an email sent from MailTrain, is our system we use, to introduce the next piece, the next step, what he or she can explore inside the collective, right? So maybe in the second week, it is about the tool sets. We call it, our tool belt. So you get to use it. It's video conferencing, here's chatting, here's our discourse, public, chat side. So you get the different tools introduced to you, maybe in the next stage, right? And then once you're familiar with that, you can move on to the third stage, and then you can dive deeper into the conversations and begin to understand the structure that the collective has. There are certain hold-ons for certain domains that we broke it into, and you understand the domains and you see who's doing what here. And then it could be another level where then you begin to, you want to work. Now you're at a point where you understand what's happening, you see the mission and vision, purpose of the collective. I want to do something now, right? So that part of onboarding is where you get to know, okay, here's how you create something in the collective, right? So here's how you create, let's say, your own circle, and you find your team members and you start, digging into activities. We haven't tested this yet, but because we just created it. But I hope this is becoming our standard onboarding process.
I think here just some thoughts. The gradual introduction approach is good, but if you make it too strictly time based, you're going to if it's 3-4 weeks before somebody gets to the point where they can do something, you might lose them. Have you considered assigning a mentor to new people?
Yes.
And letting the mentor decide how quickly to release the additional bits. I also agree. Throwing it all at somebody at once is not going to work.
Yeah.
But if the mentor is there, and especially if there ends up being good communication between the newcomer and the mentor, it might only be a day or two before the guy says, okay, fine, I found the Mattermost thing, I'm there, what's next? What I want to get started, what's next? And the mentor can guide them through, maybe not all of the bits and pieces as they grow. Maybe the sequence needs to be a little different for somebody who is ready and capable of contributing quickly.
Yes.
So I think there needs to be, you might want to, and it can't just be one person who's the mentor for everybody that comes in either, obviously.
Yes.
You need to kind of split them out, and and that mentor is the guy who says, hey, don't forget, we got a meeting on such and such, if that's the topic you're interested in.
Yes, that's right, Bob. I mean, this is what we call this a stewardship role. So, and we make it part of the onboarding process. But here's the difference: we don't make it early on in the process because we don't want to attach a mentor for every newcomer. That might work for, you have 1-2 people a week joining us. It doesn't work if you have 10 or 100 people joining us a week. So in that case, I'm often referring to this. I don't know, are you familiar with the 99-1 pyramid? What a typical participation rate in communities is 90% are lurkers, 9% are contributors, and 1% are the ones that are really active and create stuff, right? And the funny thing is, this is a constant, okay? No matter what you do, what you try, it always ends up with this 99-1, or 98, whatever, variation there. But and once you keep that into consideration, you know that 90% of people will not do much. Okay,
Mhm.
they will just come in and maybe check out what's happening, and then check out again. Maybe come in next week and then maybe introduce themselves and check out again, right? So to me, the onboarding process has to facilitate that. You have to deal with the 99.1. And of course, there's always the 1% coming in right away and say, okay, what do I got to do? Give me some stuff. And that's fine. That's fine, because he or she can reach out to other people in the collective, right? So I want to do more, right? I don't want to wait for these emails or something.
Yeah, the 1%. Yeah, the 1% take care of themselves. It's the 9%
Yes,
that you got to worry about.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's right.
It's the 9% that you need to rope in. Yeah, I agree. So maybe again, and maybe the solution there is, you're right. You don't assign a mentor on day one. But if the person's still lurking around after 3 or 4 days, now maybe you need to kind of, start paying more attention to them.
I think so too.
I copied Jim's levels here, which we don't call them levels. And they're not necessarily linear. But I think this is probably something we want to evolve for onboarding for all of our communities. Links need to be changed and such to make them generic. But I think it's a good guide. And, if you're forced to linearize things, it's, you have to compromise. And I think, how he's done it is pretty good. But if we look at what we have in the trial, okay, we have the Divvy DAO Mattermost instance, and we have the Bring Your Own ID, the Code Cloud, Divvy DAO, Giveth.io. If you don't know about Giveth and their and Griff Green, they're the ones that are developing the Ethereum support that Divvy plans to use. We use the Divvy token as their mini-me token, and they have the best written contracts on Ethereum contracts that I've seen anywhere. And they were their contracts include liquid democracy and rewarding activities based on milestones and flexible controlled contracts. We have the Internet of People, which is just not terribly active. Hopefully we'll get more. We have the Pacific Northwest that we're looking to get other people. The Dig Life Lab is, where we have individuals coming in to try the trial, and we have discussion of the social ledger, sort of the home base team for the trial. The open app ecosystem. We have proven secure systems. Oops, wrong channel. This RChain channel isn't being used. RChain has their own Slack now. I have to get rid of that. I don't think I made it public. Small Slam is an open many type project. I have to figure out exactly. It seems like we have some different ideas there going on. Newport we're hoping to bring on, and then we have Gary's video team. So I have two generic projects. That's a collaboration of a lot of communities, the video team and bring your own identity. And then a lot of specific projects in the Divvy DAO Mattermost instance. We're also in the DeckStack Mattermost instance. And we have we're in the projects domain, which has a number of projects that are coming on, maybe coming on board. And then there's the planetarium project, which is getting started here, and with the social ledger, and the synaptic Cerebity project coming on board, and potentially other projects in the DeckStack hub DeckStack. And then there's the instance of Mattermost, that's the RChain instance. And we just have one team being brought on board there, the main team at this point. But, so I'm actively trying to nudge each of these communities forward in their use of dig life, and I'm hoping to find that 1% who will be active in bringing the social ledger on board in their communities and add.
Well, again, I mean, don't just look for the 1%. You need to.
I know.
Keep an eye out for keep an eye out for the 1%, and when you find them, you point them in a direction and give them a shove. But then you need to turn back around and look for the 9%, because that's where.
And,
unfortunately, the 9% need a little more than just a direction and a shove. They need a little more handholding. You know, but there's talent there too.
Right. So we've got a huge circle in the trial here. We have wrong names here. Community is RChain, and I think it's Sovereign. Oh, projects is one of the domains in DeckStack, along with the other two projects that are forming.
Coming soon.
And so this is becoming a representation of many projects sharing many of the same core values.
Yeah, I was going to ask, by the way, where does the software that builds this diagram live?
That is written in JavaScript and PHP. PHP because there's a webhook involved, and that only works with server-side programming language. Mm-hmm. The holonic chart itself is generated with D3. Are you familiar with D3? That's a JavaScript-based charting software.
Okay.
So all of the action is happening inside the browser. Makes it very efficient on the server too, right? So you download all the data and process it on your end.
No, because I like the bubble structure itself, and I have some thoughts for setting up. I mean, not so much just the social ledger, but actually, you know, again on a more project oriented thing, setting up some project tracking and monitoring in an environment like this.
I would like to do that in the social ledger context at some point.
Yeah, so I guess my point is, you know, if I was curious if I could get a copy of it and I assume it's driving off of a database, or you said off a web server, which is, I assume, reading
Yeah.
from some sort of database somewhere.
Right. Right now, it's running in Jim's database. I don't know if we can move it to another one.
Well, I don't care about moving it, but making a copy of it.
Yeah. Well, what we have is in our DivvyDAO.net Cloudtron interests, we have a GitLab instance, and that's currently where the code lives.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one way. The other way, because that code is really tied to the social ledger right now, I would suggest take a look at D3, and it's called circle packing. That's the algorithm who creates these kind of charts.
Okay.
So if you just search for that, and you'll see some good examples out there that might help point in a way to do something on your own. Right?
Okay. Yeah, there's a couple of good libraries for that out there, but it's nice. Right now we have the category jobs in there in the social ledger, and I guess my ambition for the social ledger goes way beyond Gene's vision in terms of he's looking at what he can get done tomorrow, and I'm looking more in terms of what we can do in terms of self-sovereign identity and the general language of social objects and tokens. Incorporating our bots into the social ledger and delegating our privileges in the social ledger. Right now, it's very open. Anybody can do anything. Okay. I'm looking more to make it explicit. Privacy protecting and purposeful transparency.
Right, Jim. Small steps, right? Small steps.
Small steps. It's just wonderful. I just love where you're going with there. I do have some trepidation about linking commitment and time, but it's certainly valid to do that, and I'm sure it'll be fine. But I'm just anxious to get other tokens in there. Okay. What else? I just want to encourage people to add activities, add team members to channels. Wherever you go, wherever you explore, make it the place a little more organized than it was when you came, when you leave.
That's right.
All right,
Success.
folks, I'm going to have to go. I have another meeting that I've got to prep for. So,
Yeah, me too.
So I will leave everyone else to continue. Excellent discussions today. I think, Jim, this was successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Clancy, go ahead.
No, I learned a lot and had got a lot of new things to think about. So this is one of our best meetings ever, I think. So yeah, see you, Bob.
Okay, take it easy, folks.
I'm running too. Thanks.
Bye, Roheen.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Jim. Bye.
Thanks so much for coming.
Sure thing.